Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1.
The thinking atheist. It's not a person. It's a symbol. An idea.
The population of atheists in this country is going through the roof.
Rejecting faith. Pursuing knowledge. Challenging the sacred.
If I tell the truth, it's because I tell the truth. Not because I put my hand on a book and made a wish.
And working together for a more rational world.
Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way.
Assume nothing. Question everything. And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Hosted by Seth Andrews.
I have an inbox of work to do. I just can't get started on it. You ever have those days? Some days the ideas are pouring out of me and I can't wait to be productive. Other days you just wake up and you stare at the monitor and you go, what's wrong with me? I just can't get started. So now, for whatever reason, I just open up the microphone. This is a terrifying place to be. No preparation, no plan, no theme, no title for the show. Just whatever. That's when I get myself into trouble. Sipping my coffee. My wife bought these. They're like, we're not really on keto anymore. We did like a clean keto, lost some weight in the winter. But we got hooked on these keto chips, these sort of protein chips. Cheese and it's cheddar and onion. It's delicious and keeps me away from the other stuff that's on the retail counters. But it's kind of like an ASMR thing. Like some people enjoy listening to the sounds of other people chewing. I'm not sure I totally understand. And crinkling the back. We did a show on ASMR a while back with Heath Enright of God Awful Movies, who loves the stuff. I don't know, would you spend the morning with me, just a little time? I'm pissed off. I just woke up cranky. No reason. There's nothing that happened. There's no circumstance that I can really pin down. I mean, the world is on fire. I mean, that sucks. But I can't pinpoint any specific thing that sent me off into a tailspin. I just woke up edgy. Cranky. They talk about a 6% event. I've mentioned this on the show before. You picture your mood in terms of a 1 to 100 scale. 100 is your boiling point. That's when you just say, I've had enough, and you know, there's an outburst. You just can't take it anymore. But most of us start around 0, right? You wake up and you do this and you do that. And if minor inconveniences happen, you might end up going to 10, 20, 30, 50 on the scale. You know, it takes a lot to get you over 100%, where you're in the red zone and you just blow your stack. A lot of times it takes a lot. But then there are days when you are at 95%, like you started at 50. You woke up already kind of tense, and then this happens, and you're irritated by this, and a telemarketer calls, and you got a flat tire, and something else is going on, and now you're at 95 on the scale of 1 to 100. You're already at 95. All it takes is a 6% event to send you over the freaking edge. It can be a small thing. People wonder, well, why did he overreact like that? They don't know where you were before you got to that minor, inconsequential event. Did the 6% event just send you over 100? And you just pop. Spontaneously combust. You know what I mean? I'm not at 95%. I'm just saying, I'm tense. And I am so discouraged with the world around me. Nobody's wearing masks. Oklahoma seeing a surge in COVID cases. And the citizens of Oklahoma, whom I love, are looking around at each other going, well, how the hell did this happen? I had to go to the grocery store, right? It's one of the essential, necessary trips that we make. Got my N95 mask on, trying to do the right thing, trying to keep my distance. They've got the little markers on the floor. Nobody's wearing a mask. The employees at the grocery store, they are apparently required as a matter of policy to wear masks. You know what they do? They wear them under their noses. But what? You breathe through your nose. Did you see that? It was an illustration. It was a guy, and he had his underwear pulled under his penis. His penis was hanging out. And they're like, this is what you look like when you wear a protective mask and you put it under your nose. The collective IQ of people, it just grieves me. We may not deserve to survive the apocalypse, the zombie apocalypse that is impending. We should just get wiped out. We should be like natural selection, should just exterminate us. Put a mask on. And then I'm watching somebody on Facebook, and they are angry. Well, you know, people in this country aren't going to tolerate masks. People just won't do it. As if that's an argument. And so the person who had brought up the conversation said, yeah, but isn't this a public safety issue? It's a minor inconvenience. It helps at least a little bit. We should do whatever we can as responsible citizens, as empathetic human beings, to make sure we are protecting other people as best we can. Masks make a lot of sense. I don't know. People just aren't going to do it. That's not even an argument. People won't do it. People don't want to do it. It's not an argument. Now, here in this country, you can't tell people to put a mask. You sure can make it mandatory. Did you see that city council? I think it was a city council meeting in Florida. This was, I want to say it was 2 days ago from the time of this broadcast, where people were taking the podium to protest the idea of mandatory masks. I believe this was Palm Beach. Oh, I pulled the video up. As posted, this was on CNN. Angry residents erupt at meeting over mask rule. Let me just play part of this for you.
At a commissioners' meeting in Florida's Palm Beach County, anger erupted after a unanimous vote to make masks mandatory. This turned downright ugly. Here was the scene.
You literally cannot mandate somebody to wear a mask knowing that that mask is killing people. It literally is killing people. And we the people are waking up, and we know what citizens arrest is, because citizens arrests are already happening, okay? And every single one of you that are obeying the devil's laws are going to be arrested. And you, doctor, are going to be arrested for crimes against humanity.
The problem with humanity today is ignorance, arrogance, and apathy. Keep taking the road of least resistance. Keep listening to the TV brainwashing you from birth.
And they want to throw God's wonderful breathing system out the door. You're all turning your backs on it.
Doctor, I really have many question marks about your degrees and what you really know. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I don't think that you are worthy of your credentials. And I would ask suggestively that you go back to school and get educated.
Ma'am. So you and I are watching this, and we are thinking, again, humankind does not deserve to survive the apocalypse. One of the people at the meeting actually spoke about 5G. The 5G conspiracy theory. They're using 5G cell technology to infect people with COVID-19 as part of the conspiracy. I don't know. Somebody might have brought up Bill Gates. It just kills a part of my heart. I thought about just taking a break from all media. The problem is that I don't want to be unaware of what's happening in the world. But after a while, you just like, how much awfulness can we as humankind, can we digest without going insane? It's an article somebody sent me. I'll be honest, I don't know anything about this publication. I don't know anything about the author. I just read the article and I thought, that's interesting. So I've only read it once before. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to read the whole thing to you just because we've got the time. I'm just going to read it. It is posted in eand.co. I don't even know what that is. By a guy named Umair Haq, Haque. How Freedom Became Freedom in America. Subtitle is Why the World is Horrified by the American Idiot. Now, I know it's easy to throw stones at the United States from across the pond, and people love to do it. Okay, fine. We've made ourselves an easy target. But trust me, there's a lot about the United States that I genuinely love and laud. You know, we bitch and moan about the horror of the Trump administration and the anti-science, the sort of rampant anti-science culture and the evangelical right and, you know, this resistance to just basic scientific data. The culture of ignorance that can't name one Supreme Court justice or one of the 10 commandments that, you know, it's in the Bible, they say is absolutely true, but they can tell you all about Kim Kardashian. Yes, I get it. We often deserve your ire. But there are a lot of things about this country that it's a country worth saving. The American experiment is worth salvaging. It's worth fixing. I'm just not one of those burn it all down guys. I just don't. There's a lot that I'm so thankful for. You know, if I was an apostate in freaking Yemen or Saudi Arabia or whatever, I mean, my life would be in danger. I have the freedom to be an apostate. Yeah, there's some cultural issues, and yes, there's some discrimination, and yes, everybody looks at you like you're radioactive. But at the same time, I'm free to host the website and have the YouTube channel and do this very broadcast because, well, it's because of the way America is set up. We still have a vote, for what it's worth. We still have a voice. We can participate in at least a way in processes, both local, regional, state, national. There are the freedoms to protest. I don't care what the sort of anti-speech mob has to say about it. We can go out and protest in the streets. I know there's a lot to be supported, but there's also a lot wrong. I read this article and I was just shaking my head the whole time. So even though I really don't know much about the author, I found the perspective interesting. If you would, let me just read this to you. It's not a short article, but again, we've got a little time. Okay? How Freedom Became Freedom in America. Why the World is Horrified by the American Idiot. It starts with this photograph. It's got people protesting and holding a sign demonstrating freedom is essential. End the lockdown, the COVID-19 lockdown. Live free, that's a hashtag. Drink the freedom bleach was one of the actual signs being posted. Now, I'm going to say this word wrong, I'm sure. Is it Avradama? Avradama? Shouted Mateo from across the park. Snowy looked up at me quizzically. It was too early for this. I grumbled, irritated. What was the Italian doctor trying to say this fine spring lockdown morning? Mate, have you seen this? Ben, the grizzled London copper, asked me, starting to cackle as he handed me his iPhone. There I saw a picture of crowds of people gathered in Central Park. Then another on California's beaches, with apparently not a care in the world. What the hell is wrong with them? It's not like there's a global pandemic or anything, Ben laughed. You see, added Mateo, Avradama. What the? I began to ask, and then I got it. Freedom. As in, look at what these idiots think is freedom. LOL. Snowy looked up at me, grinning. My dog park buddies had a pint. Americans, I said, sighing. I struggled for a moment and then gesticulated. All that came out was, they're just different. Ben rolled his eyes. Mateo sighed melodramatically. We know, mate. Oh, we know. The American idiot is by now a figure that's the stuff of myth and legend across the world. Nobody else is really quite sure. Are Americans really like this, well, laughable? Yesterday, they were the kind of people who made their kids do active shooter drills, meaning masked men burst into classrooms and pretend to kill them. What the... Today, they're the kind of people who happily congregate in parks and on beaches during a global pandemic, when the lunatic fringe amongst them isn't protesting for liberation in the first place. What on earth? I don't use the term as an insult, the American idiot. I mean it in a precise way, as I try to remind people. For the Greeks, idiot carried a precise and special meaning. The person who is only interested in private life, private gain, private advantage, who had no conception of a public good, commonwealth, shared interest. To the Greeks, the pioneers of democracy, the creators of the demos, such a person was the most contemptible of all. Because even the Greeks seem to understand you can't make a functioning democracy out of idiots. Now, I'm going to generalize, but I don't mean that all Americans are idiots. I mean that, for example, more or less everyone who wants to carry a gun to Starbucks, deny their neighbors health care, make people beg for medicine online, and not let anyone in society ever retire. All of those people in the world, by and large, are Americans. Nobody else, nobody in the whole world at this point in history thinks such things are remotely desirable. Now, let me just pause for a second and say that I think that's a huge overstatement. But okay, all right, I'll go with it in favor of the larger point that he's making. Okay. Hence, the American idiot. It means the world's largest and most hardened subset of idiots at this point. And the classical Greek meaning of the word is largely American. You don't have to think very hard to understand why my Italian friend laughed at such a person. We've had many serious conversations over the last few months. How are things in Italy going? I ask, trying to be gentle. He looks away in grief and says simply, difficile. The dogs play. I wonder if his loved ones are okay. He tells me stories of a society pulling together to fight a deadly disease, whose toll has been heavy and grave. Is it any wonder that, looking at Americans gathering in Central Park, on Long Beach, he's shocked into laughter? We're lucky he's laughing. What he really feels, I'd bet, is a kind of horror, combined with contempt. The very same contempt the Greeks felt for their idiots. Freedom? I'd bet he thinks more like free dumb. When Matteo, when Ben, when every single person I know who's not American, when the world looks at America, it sees the American idiot. And what it tries, and usually fails because it's lost for words, to express is something like this. Can people really be this selfish, this oblivious, this thankless? Why do they keep voting for less health care, retirement, education, income, savings, happiness, trust, year after year, even the so-called good ones? What kind of people? Why are they literally the only people left in the world who do that? And then complain bitterly about not having the very things they deny each other. Who can even make sense of this? The bizarre circular firing squad of social suicide that America has become. But all those, of course, are key traits of the idiot. The answer, sadly, I think, is yes, people can really be this way. Perhaps because they don't know any other way. Maybe because it's all they've ever been taught or told. That's not an apologia for the American idiot, by the way, or is it? Even I wonder. Still, let me try to explain as best I can. America's strange and complicated with freedom. One so perverse that freedom became twisted into something very much like its opposite. It has to do with the way Americans think. unsubtly, narrowly, single-mindedly about what freedom is and means. About half a century ago, the philosopher Isaiah Berlin divided freedom into two categories. Maybe you already know them: negative freedom, or freedom from, and positive freedom, or freedom to. The theory then went, and this became the basis of generations of American thought, that only the freedom from was worth developing and cultivating. The freedom to, on the other hand, was vilified as something that only communists and socialists would want. Why? Because my freedom to, say, to be educated or to be healthy, requires your input, help, cooperation. But American thinking, which became obsessed with individualism, couldn't admit or permit that, because then maybe you weren't taking responsibility for yourself and all the rest of the jargon. All this dates back, of course, to Nietzsche's, how do I say that? Zarathustra, the Uberman. It's not too hard to see why a society that was born in slavery and continued into segregation, in which horrors like crippling and maiming people for the color of their skin were perfectly all right, why a society like that ends up prizing freedom from. America's obsession with freedom from dates right back to the slave owners' desire for freedom from government intervention, law, common decency, and tiny shred of humanity to have the power to exploit and abuse human beings on an unthinkable scale. There's a straight line from Nietzsche's master morality, naturally dominating the slave morality, to Berlin's freedom from any restraint on power. And that straight line is the one American thinking, still backwards, mired in the logic of domination and exploitation, traced. Americans don't like it when I make those links for them, but they are as plain as day. You only have to look at Europe or Canada to see the contrast. There, the idea of freedom itself evolved, away from freedom from, which is what the early European Revolution were about. For example, when the French abolished the formal class system, freedom from nobility and monarchy and so forth, and toward freedom to. By the end of the Second World War, Europe had done something radical and transformative, written the freedom to into its constitutions. People would now have expansive freedoms too. Freedom to have good health care, education, retirement, income, savings, and so forth. It's true that today's Europe is forgetting about that breakthrough, but it's not true that it wasn't history-changing. The power of the freedom to gave Europe's history's highest standards of living in just one human lifetime. Nothing has been seen like it ever before, and maybe nothing will ever be again. You might have noticed, though, that I'm still accepting Berlin's old dichotomy, freedom from and freedom to. I reject it. I think the dichotomy itself is a mistake, maybe the formative mistake of American ideas. Isn't good education also just freedom from ignorance? Good health care, freedom from illness, and so forth. I think that a century ago, trying to neatly cleave freedoms into the good kind and the bad kind, American thinking made a huge, terrible mistake. One which trapped it to circle a desert for a century and then find itself in a dead end. You can see that dead end everywhere today. In the cruelty, aggression, rage, violence, hate, which characterize American life is especially brutal, Americans are always trying to escape from any kind of obligation or responsibility to anything, each other, history, the future, just common decency, even just basic humanity. Who else makes their kids pretend to die and then pretends that doesn't scar kids for life? That's why the world doesn't know whether to be horrified, shocked, repelled, or astonished by America, and it laughs, nervously, oddly, baffled. What Americans don't know is that laughter is a world being polite. Here's how extreme America's belief in freedom freedom as the absence of any kind of obligation or responsibility to anything greater than narrow, immediate, infantile self-satisfaction has gotten. Americans aren't just congregating in parks and beaches during a global pandemic. They're literally the only people in the world who just voted against better health care from Bernie and Liz in the middle of a pandemic. Think about the scale of such folly for a moment. What kind of people vote for worse health care during a pandemic? John Cleese would struggle to make a face that expressed the surreal, tragic comedy of such a thing. But that's what Americans did, what they do over and over and over again. Why? Because they still believe, even if they don't think they believe, in Berlin's tired, weary, flawed, old distinction. Freedom has only come to mean the removal of any restraint, negative freedom, on the exercise of individual desire, the satiation of individual appetite. What freedom still doesn't mean in America is any of the following: good health care, retirement, education, and so forth, because what freedom has never meant is any form of collective action. Let me put that more sharply. What if the only way that I can have decent health care is for you to have decent health care first? What if the only way for me to have a decent retirement is for all of us to have one first? You see, that logic, which is the math of public goods, makes a mockery of Berlin's dichotomy. Then, what we don't need is simple freedom from some kind of restraint, but the freedom to collectively organize, coordinate, take action. Freedom can give us liberty as individuals, it's true, from kings and even governments. But only the freedom to can give us liberty as societies, groups, classes, nations. These two kinds of freedoms might exist in tension, but try to have one without the other, and the result is a spectacular collapse. Freedom to, without freedom from, gave us the Soviet Union. But freedom from, without freedom to, gave us America, the failed state, the world's first poor, rich country. Gentle Europe, wise New Zealand, humble and kind Canada, which balance the two, have found a kind of miracle in that equilibrium. Mateo and Ben often ask me, what's wrong with Americans? All my non-American friends do, as do everyone's. What they really mean is, why don't they get it? Why can't they change? I tell them that Americans will never really change. They used to think I was kidding. Looking at Americans voting down better health care during a pandemic, then happily crowd parks and beaches after protesting for liberation from lockdown, they're beginning to believe me. Change? You know about sunk costs, I'm sure. You should let them go, but you can't. Think of a bad relationship. You know you should break up. But how can you let all that investment go? So it is with Americans and freedom. They're too invested in the fool's idea of freedom that wrecked their future to really begin to understand that it is a fool's definition of freedom. They'll go on thinking, in my estimation, that freedom means things like this: carrying a gun to Starbucks so kids have to do active shooter drills. Being able to choose, quote unquote, choose between 1 million health insurance plans, none of which covers you, so that you don't have to pay higher taxes to the hated government, making everyone stand on their own 2 feet, even while every force in society is cutting those very limbs away, never taking any kind of collective action as a society. That's socialism. That's communism. Those things are bad. They're terrible. No, my friends. Americans will never understand the miracle of European social democracy, of Canadian investment in each other, of New Zealand making a difficult, joyous peace with a broken past. They won't. Because they can't? Because they don't want to? Because nobody teaches them about the gentle and beautiful power in cooperation, in dignity, in respect for the self and others as more than a thing of appetite? Because they're trapped by a sordid history which they secretly care little about overcoming? Maybe in the end it's just all the above. freedom. Here I am, the American idiot, carrying my gun to Starbucks before I go to Walmart, where I'll choose between 1 million different flavors of the everyday low price, and then I'll dream about being great again while I drive my big car down the big empty highway, listening to some bellowing mullah of capital and individualism and cruelty telling me to hate and rage a little more. Along the way, so what if I create my very own exploitation, abuse, misery, decline into poverty, despair, degradation, dehumanization? Hey, don't tell me any different. Isn't that what freedom really is? Now, we can nitpick about some of the details there, but the overall vibe of that piece, for me, gets it. We have decided in this country that any sort of collective thinking is a cheat of freedom. We have also bought into, especially the privileged, have bought into the lie that, well, everybody else can and should make it on merit because everybody has equal opportunity. And the world and the country and history is filled with stories of those who overcame adversity and poverty and abuse and scandal, etc., to become something great and achieve the American dream. This is what people tell themselves, I think, in an effort to try to avoid the hard questions about societies that limit certain demographics. I mean, to the person who is given all these opportunities, who lives in that quote-unquote normal, the idea of someone else suffering it's a distant problem. It is an emotionless reaction that you have. It becomes a statistic. You say, oh, well, a certain percentage of this country can't get health care. That's tragic. Pass the salt. Oh, somebody's going to get COVID. Oh, that's terrible. And, you know, those who don't have an asymptomatic version of it end up with tremendous damage to their lungs and heart and all these other problems if they survive it. Well, that's terrible. But you know what? It's not going to happen to me. And it's just collateral damage because the most important thing is freedom. We have to go out. Did you see those guys? Was it in Tennessee where they're banging? I think it was Tennessee. They're banging on the freaking door of the governor's of the state capitol, holding AR-15s, waving American and Confederate flags because freedom. Jesus Christ. It hurts the heart. Hurts my heart. People across the pond, they look around, and hell, people within this own country look around and they say, what the hell's going on with you people? I talk to my Canadian friends. I've done some interviews with Canadians recently on the show, and I'm like, what do you think of us? When you look down over the border, do you just think it's like living in the apartment above a meth head? And you just think, oh my God, they need to be evicted. At least turn down the stereo and quit littering, quit shitting all over the place. Quit pissing in the swimming pool, would you? That's how they see the United States. I fight discouragement. Sometimes when you see that Twitter and Facebook are so often populated with awfulness, you begin to see awfulness to such a degree that you become infected with it. It affects the way you think. It affects your mood. It steals your optimism. I'm not talking about blind optimism, but I'm an optimist usually. And there's still so much. I hold to the idea there's still so much good. Somebody mentioned this the other day, and they're absolutely right. We talk about the alarming, overwhelming support of Donald Trump and his anti-humanism. And this remains true today as the poll numbers are sinking. But, you know, when he won the election, even then he did not have the majority vote. The majority of the United States population did not vote for the guy. He won on the Electoral College. Gives you a little hope. At least half, a little over half of the voting public saw that train coming. Still, tens of millions of people. They just had a rally in my hometown, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Donald Trump comes here on the weekend of Juneteenth. The weekend of Juneteenth. And does he for any moment stop to address the racial tensions in this country? The open wound which is happening right now in this nation. to address the problems, to reassure, to lead, to bring people together, to try to promote a sense of goodness and justice, to de-escalate, to talk about reform, how we're going to fix the country, and how we can be part of fixing the world, fixing humanity. He has all these opportunities to lead, doesn't even fucking mention it. He spends 15 minutes talking about walking down a ramp. It just makes you tired in your heart. As reported in the Washington Post, Trump signs order seeking to allow churches to engage in more political activity, pandering to a specific demographic of people. And it continues today as we see the evangelicals and the pulpit preachers and the mega pastors waltzing in and out of the White House, a state church separated government, and nobody blinks. Nobody blinks. They use tear gas to clear a crowd of peaceful protesters so that Donald Trump can have a photo opportunity holding up a book that he knows nothing about. Nothing. I've had this conversation with Trumpers, and they'll say, well, how do you know he doesn't know it? Now, this is an easy one. Remember when he was asked to name a favorite scripture during an interview? Well, it's a personal thing, and I just don't want to get into that because it's my favorite book. Now, this is something that politicians, they're asked these types of softball questions, and they pass them easily. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. You can get off the hook on that one easy. For God did not come into the world to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved through him. In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. And just pick one. He just stood there, deer in the headlights, drool coming out of his mouth, going, well, it's kind of a personal thing. I would like to sit Donald Trump down. I would like to walk him back to the church, and he can hold up his Bible. He'll hold it up, photo op, after we've cleared the peaceful protesters with tear gas and all that stuff for the photo op, to promote a Bible he does not read in front of a church he does not attend. Fine. I would like to sit him down in front of me, and I would like to quiz him on the Bible. Basic stuff. You know what? President Trump, could you name for me the first 3 words of the Holy Bible? Just watch the flop sweat. Watch him glaze over. Watch the mannequin stare. Tilt, tilt, tilt. In the beginning. We're all saying it. Everybody knows it. Even heathens know it. People from other religions know it. In the beginning. Ask Donald Trump. Trust me, he knows fuck all about the Bible. And I'm surrounded by MAGA Christians who, they refuse to challenge this. Well, you know he loves God and loves Jesus. They had this rally in Tulsa. I'm walking Linus in my neighborhood. This really happened. I'm walking Linus in my neighborhood. We turn the corner. This was after Saturday night's rally. And a van full of people pulls into a house. This really happened. The van door opens. I look in and I see an alarming amount of red. I see red hats. I see red shirts, and they're holding signs. They'd obviously just come from the Tulsa Trump rally, which was, by the way, poorly attended and an absolute nightmare for the man. So they're all getting out of this. It's like clowns getting out of a clown car. And I resisted, and I kind of wish I had done it. I resisted the urge to shout from across the street, "Hey, was the Kool-Aid delicious?" I talk about these people in my new book, which I will shamelessly plug right now. Because I can. By the way, as soon as it releases, it goes out to Amazon and Audible. The autographed pre-order goes away. I don't know when that is. Like the publisher could tell me that it's happening July 30th. It could happen tomorrow. I don't know. But as soon as I get the notification that it's going out for official release, my autographed pre-order goes away. But I talk about the MAGA Christians and the Fox News Christians. That's the name of the book. I'll show it to you here. Confessions of a Former Fox News Christian. We get into Christian nationalism. I get into Rush Limbaugh, Michael Savage, right-wing radio, the gun culture, a culture of believers that knows nothing about the Bible they say is absolutely true. This makes me crazy. Talk about the origins of Fox News and who the power players are and how it's influencing society and the voting habits of people who get there, that they literally have their world shaped by a single news network and usually a single talk radio host. This feeds them. What it does is it provides a conduit of information that shapes an alternate reality that is not really reality. And I used to be that guy. I listened to Rush Limbaugh driving home from work. Yeah, they had him running between 1 and 4 at the time on KRMG, and I got out of the office around 1 o'clock, and so I'd listen to the monologue. And he would just get me all worked up about freedom. The secular humanists are coming for your freedoms, and the godless want to rip Jesus out of our lives and make Christianity illegal and blah, blah, blah. By the time I got home, I was wound up like a freaking spring. So I had all the latitude and freedom in the world, and at the same time, I was convinced that my freedom was being stripped from me. I mean, that was a walking contradiction. So I try to get into the mindset of what's that like? Where does it come from? How does the message become propaganda instead of news? And so I wrote this book about it. Relax, conservatives. I also tweak some of my fellow lefties because there are factions of the left, my fellow progressives and liberals, that drive me up the wall. Anyway, if you want to pre-order and you would like it personally signed to you, go to SethAndrews.com. And at any moment, that'll be gone. I'm not sure exactly when I'll get the notification that it's going out. Shameless plug, fine. But it's my channel, so I'm going to plug it. And now, my friends, we take a moment to enhance our calm, to align our chi, to take our chakras and have them vibrate in the positive as best we can. After the break, phone calls. We go to the switchboard, and of course, whatever happens to fly out of my mouth on this sort of random, unscripted show, stand by. I'll be right back. Weird being in a place where you love your country and you also sort of lament its demise at the same time. You know, to love something as you watch it burn, at least ideologically, politically, it just seems like it's just what? It just can't even see through the smoke. And so I rant and lament and vent and just confide in you, the listener. Thank you so much for being here. My patrons on Patreon get this show totally commercial free, and they get it early. Become a patron, patreon.com/Seth Andrews. And we head to the switchboard, area code 907. Hi, you're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Who's this?
Hey, this is John, an Alaskan living in Florida. Saw you in Anchorage, and I saw you here in Orlando. So I've seen you at both ends of the United States.
I got married that week in Anchorage. Well, it wasn't in Anchorage, but Natalie and I flew to Alaska to get married there. So that was a very special week for me.
Yep.
So what's on your mind?
Yep. Yeah, I recall. Oh, just echoing your frustrations. My wife and I were recently house hunting here, for instance, and driving around in the Orlando area. It's the only time we ever go out was when we've been house hunting. We recently stopped because the numbers are spiking, but just everyone going around like it's normal, like barely anyone's wearing masks. All the restaurants are packed. It's just, and we're just pulling our hair out. We're like, what's going on right now?
It's like they take pride in breathing on each other. It's almost like a defiance of tyranny when they go out and breathe and cough on you. It's almost like, well, this is America, and in America we breathe on each other.
Yeah, I had a pretty lengthy phone conversation with a high school buddy of mine who's living in Australia now, and I was kind of explaining to him what's going on here, and he was flabbergasted. Like, what a bunch of idiots.
The American idiot. And, it's hard because I really do love this country. And I'm also fully aware that there are a lot of people who are like me, who are like you, who get it, who care about other people. And that's probably, it's one of the, if I was to diverge from the article, it doesn't really address a significant percentage of people in this country who do care, who are wearing their masks, who are isolating, distancing, who are doing everything they can to try to keep our healthcare workers more safe and society safe, humankind safe. Those people exist, and you and I are examples of that. But, that doesn't get the press. We get the press whenever people go out to, I was driving by the other day. There were two major restaurants a couple miles from me. The parking lots were packed. I mean, they were packed with people. Just a petri dish.
Yeah, it's insane. And I've gotten an email from work. I've been lucky enough I'm an engineer, so I've been able to work from home. But I got an email saying that we're going to have to probably go back to work here in a couple weeks. And I know that I have people around the office who just think this isn't a big deal. They don't really take very many precautions. I'm like, really?
Well, I think the absence of empathy is a terrifying thing. When we stop caring about people beyond ourselves, that's when really bad things happen.
Indeed, sir. I agree.
Anything else?
No, sir. That's it. Just we stand in solidarity.
You and I, with our masks pulled over our mouths and our noses, stand in solidarity. Be safe out there. Thanks for calling.
Yes, sir.
All right, see you later.
Have a good one.
Oh, he called me sir. I guess I'm in sir territory. I've noticed there's more and more gray coming in. I was thinking, it's like a science fair project where you are the exhibit. You look in the mirror every day as you get older. I wonder if I'll be completely gray in 5 years. What'd that look like? That'd be weird. Then I'll be a sir. I'll be a sir then, but I'm not sure I'm quite ready to be a sir. Now, 415, you're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Hi, who's this?
This is Richard. Am I on?
You are on the air. What's going on?
Wow. I'm a big fan, first of all.
Oh, thank you.
Really, anything you say, I'm aligned on anything that you bake, that you play, that you read. So I'm a big fan. I'm a little excited here.
Oh, you're very kind.
Me.
Well, be a skeptic. I get it wrong sometimes. Sometimes I say stupid things like anybody else does. I just, when I find out I was stupid, I try to go back and fix it for what it's worth.
No. Anything that you say, I'm pretty much aligned. So there's something going on here. Anyway, I just called because I am actually half Italian. My dad's Italian. My mom's American. And I've lived half my life in Italy and half my life over here. And I see, I see the graphs, the COVID graphs of, the Europe, you had the spike and then it went down. And here you have a spike and then it's like going down and spiking up again. And I think we're really right now showing the world how America is just so behind on, being smart. I don't know. It's just, it's embarrassing right now. And, I get in fights with my wife because my wife is, 100% American. And she kind of takes it personally. And I'm like, my parents are still over there. So I still, I know how structured it is over there, how people, though Italians are, you can drive on the streets really any speed limit you want. The police doesn't really care. It's much more free in that sense. But when it came to this, they all lined up. They all understood how serious of a problem this is. Whereas here, with the leadership that we have, I really see no end in sight because I am terrified to go out. I am terrified for my kids to do anything because people just think it's just going to go away because we have this moron in the White House and it's just my blood just boils, it just boils. And when I saw the whole Obamacare thing going away this morning and I saw you on and I'm like, yes, he's pissed. I am pissed. I should call in. I should call in,
Anger can be a good motivator. Anger can be a good. I don't want to be an angry guy. That's not my thing. But I think
so it's just.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No. Go ahead.
No. You're the host.
We're a polite group this morning. I'm just saying. Sometimes anger can be a healthy motivator. I think sometimes it can drive you forward. It is, though. It's exhausting. I don't think anger is a way to live. I know people who are perpetually angry. They just live in a constantly agitated state, and I think that must be exhausting. So I don't want to be that guy. But at the same time, how can you not look around at the insanity and not just feel something well up inside you? Is it just me? I just don't get it. The irrationality of people. It's just. And it's just, I'm both, so I'm European. So, I grew up, I spend every summer in the States, so I think I'm just as American as anybody else over here. But it's just, there's this sense of, freedom in this country. I think it's just the freedom to be an idiot. You have the freedom to be an illogical person. Yeah. And it's just, people don't understand that. Europe is free. It's free. Italy's free. Spain's free. Like that speech, the Jeff Daniels speech in that show. Europe is free. There's a lot of freedom in Europe too. But here people think, I don't know. I get all worked out. I got you. Well, hang in there. Yeah. Just know that your frustrations are shared. Okay.
Okay, good. And thanks for taking my call. I love your show. You're awesome.
You're very kind.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Be safe.
Okay.
So I wrote a chapter in the book called We're Number One. It's a chapter about American exceptionalism. Now, this is true. When you walk around in Red State, Oklahoma, and you say, which nation is the greatest nation on the face of the earth? And it's just a home team rallying cry. America is number one. And you ask them, by what metric are we first? And it's like that Jeff Daniels speech in the television show, which the name escapes me, The Newsroom. But, we have freedom. I'm sorry, Canada doesn't have freedom. Australia doesn't have freedom. What do you mean freedom? Well, we have a strong military. Well, okay, fine. Do we have the largest or strongest military? No. But what other metrics do we use to determine greatness? The healthcare system, not even close to being number one in the world. Average median income, no. Cost of living, no. Gross domestic product, no. Average lifespan, no. Peacefulness, overall peacefulness, this has been measured. They take different metrics about the overall fulfillment people have in their everyday lives. Are we number one? Not even close. We're not even close. And so in the chapter, I lay this stuff out. And so, I think it's, a home team sort of cheerleader kind of deal can be worthy if you are trying to better yourself without diminishing others. I really do think you can love your country without diminishing the other nations of the world, without a superiority complex. It's the difference, I think, between healthy patriotism and blind nationalism. I can love the United States and want it to succeed and achieve the very best ideals and ideas, and still at the same time admire and laud and even love other countries around the world. It's not an either-or proposition, but in certain demographics, it is either-or. There's no room for anybody else on the winner's platform. We must dominate. Well, how do we dominate? Which statistic causes us to win the gold medal? Well, freedom. Somebody call Canada and tell them we got more freedom than they've got. Somebody call the UK. Yeah, somebody call Australia, New Zealand, Who's the most innovative in the world? It's not the United States. Who is the most technologically advanced? It's not the United States. Who's the most culturally relevant which country has given the most culture to the world? It ain't the United States. How are we number one? I got a whole chapter about it. And where that mentality comes from my perspective. Why people knee-jerk into this superiority complex that Donald Trump likes to say, like that tweet, we're number one in the universe, not just on the planet, not just in the solar system, in the galaxy. The U.S. is number one in the universe. I feel the cells in my body screaming in agony. They're screaming in pain. The pain. I'm like Spock when he's mind melding with the Horta in classic Star Trek. Pain. The pain. That's what I feel when that shit goes down. 630. You're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Hi, who's this?
Hey, this is your friendly neighborhood atheist, Ethan. How you doing, Seth?
Ethan, what's on your mind?
Not much. Just I have a question. So I find that in religious talks, I can stay calm. But when it comes to some Republicans, and I don't know because I used to be one of those angry Republicans, I get triggered easier. So how do you think we can have more productive dialogue with those, I don't want to say crazy, but extreme right-wing Republicans?
You know, it's funny. I was talking to Dale McGowan about this, and I think politics is even harder. It's a harder divide to bridge because I think it speaks to our values. Like religion is window dressing in so many cases. The cultural Christian who knows nothing about the Bible and they attend church every few weeks and otherwise they live secular lives, right? I mean, you know, they speak the God talk, but they live as if there is no God. They click their seatbelts and load their handguns and buy their health insurance and you know, they operate as if they need to kind of take care of themselves. But when it comes to, I think, how you vote politically, it speaks more to your value system. What are you about? What are your philosophies on life? What do you value? And I think those are more difficult to divide. And if you and I are to be honest right now at this moment, you caught me at a weird moment because I've given up. Like I have not had one conversation with a hardcore evangelical right winger who is part of Trump cult. I have not had one productive conversation where they didn't just glaze over and completely stop listening. And I couldn't appeal to them rationally. I couldn't appeal to them morally. And it's not that I won't have the conversation, but I've just come to this weird point now where I think we as humanists are going to have to just push through them. I don't think my energies are best spent right now trying to convince Trump cult. I think my energies are going to have to be spent trying to promote better ideas so that we can push through the awfulness and see better ideas win the day. In that way, I've kind of given up. I don't know. Do you ever feel that?
I do, but I guess I just don't want to give up. And maybe it's because on a small scale, like for instance, last week, I got a Trump supporter to budge on universal health care. And that was like, holy crap, I got them to see the other side. Like little wins like that to me are what make it worth it to keep going. Like I feel like if we can use human compassion, since policies don't work, we can find a way to get through to them. And
that
maybe
gives
that's
me
just
hope.
That
gives me hope. It's almost like religion. Like if someone had given up on me, and I was a devout evangelical, if someone had given up on me, I would have never changed my mind. But at the same time, I also had come to a point when I was willing to be open to newer ideas. Some of that had to happen internally, organically. And, you know, when I see the people coming back from the rally and they are convinced that this sociopathic, malignant, narcissist, predator, pathologically lying, awful monster of a human being is somehow God's good agent doing divine work for the kingdom, they are not listening. I mean, they are completely immersed in Trump cult. I have come to the conclusion that they are a waste of my time. The only thing I can do is live a better life, support better values, and try to push through them, outvote them, outmaneuver them, out-influence them in the arena of ideas so that goodness can one day prevail. And that's kind of where I've come into my own life for what it's worth, okay?
But if we write them off or just try and push through them, don't you think in the back of their mind that's just going to reinforce their ideas? And come November, we're going to have an even harder fight?
It's possible. For me, it's a lose-lose, right? I feel like it's, Stephen Hassan has this great book called The Cult of Trump. Now, I'm not talking about people who hate him, but they have decided that, fiscally or whatever, or they're just so terrified of anything democratic or what they deem to be socialist / communist. And we address that in the article. They've aligned those two, or they see extremes on the left. And I'm a huge opponent of extremism. I'm frustrated by members of my own camp, but they see that. And for them, it defines the whole party, And so they've rationalized their way through. I'm not saying those conversations aren't productive, but when it comes to Trump cult, and I'm talking about those who are impervious to reason, who hold a biblical narrative, they believe this guy it's like the divine right of kings. He has been anointed as king. So whenever he bends or breaks the law or he acts in contradiction to the Constitution, they actually like that because he's appointed. His power is protecting and securing. And sometimes you got to break a few eggs, man, to make an omelet. And that's what he's doing. He's different. They love the fact that he's like a Tasmanian devil in a china shop. Just that they love that about it. I've written them off. I think all I can do is push through them. And I may be totally wrong on that score. And I'm not proud of that part of myself at all. I'm a little ashamed to admit it, but after years and years of trying, I feel like no inroads have been made, and I don't know what else to do, So I feel free to correct me, everybody. Feel free to chastise me for that mindset. So
I guess the last thing I'll say is when I see them, I see myself from years ago, and I don't feel that they actually have the tools in their head, the critical thinking skills to get to where we're at. And that's why I'm just so hesitant to write them off, because I just know, like, if people were able to get through my previously racist ass or the comments I would used to make about LGBTQ community, if people got through to me, we can get through to them. So I personally just can't give up.
I receive your encouragement, my brother, in the God I don't believe in. And I appreciate your call very much. Thanks for the encouragement.
Thanks, have a good one.
All right. So part of this solution, I think, has to be, let me back up. There is a very successful propaganda campaign within the Trump administration that you can only trust the dear leader. And everything else is fake news. So what you've got is a near foolproof scenario where the cult leader determines what is true. That truth with a capital T is accepted by the congregation. And any disconfirming information is brushed off as fake, right? Confirming information accepted, disconfirming information is rejected as false, which is why they see Fox News as, quote, trademarked, right? Trademark slogan, fair and balanced. What's the implication? That all of the other news networks are unfair and imbalanced, or they're all equally bad. Fake news. So now you've got a narrow conduit of information where their reality is molded by maybe two news sources, one of them television, the other being right-wing talk radio. This forms how they see the world. It becomes the lens through which they view the United States and other nations. And in that quote-unquote reality, they operate in a hugely nonsensical way. So perhaps one of the options for us to counter that is to try to break through. I'm already shaking my own head going, oh, God. I've tried it. Actually, the information that he gave is not correct. Here are the facts. Well, that's just fake news. Where did you get those statistics from? Yeah, that's part of the liberal media. Well, actually, the numbers on COVID are this. Well, you know what? I still don't believe it. You know what? Testing. We know climate change is, you know what, those scientists. Rush Limbaugh, right-wing talk radio icon, actually listed science as what he called one of the four corners of deceit. Deceit. He has framed science and scientists as sort of this Illuminati star chamber of conspiratorial eggheads who just want to disinform and misinform and propagandize the religion of science so they must be distrusted. No wonder we're hosed in the United States. No wonder you've got people wailing about Bill Gates trying to infect people with COVID purposefully so that he can sell them the vaccine. I've given up. I give up. I surrender. I'm gonna push through. I'm done trying to sit around and reason it out and show you the data and appeal to your moral sensibilities. Blah, blah, blah. Nobody's listening. I'm pushing through you. I will work along with my friends and family all around the world to create a better society without you or around you or despite you. That's where I'm at in this moment. It may change in 5 minutes, but that's how I feel. Now I'm going to have a chip. Because everything is better when you eat cheddar and onion keto chips during a podcast. I'm going to push through them. Where is our time most effectively spent? Am I spinning my wheels, or am I going to go find another vehicle that's more roadworthy and drive forward? And I'm sorry for talking with my mouth full. 308, you're on the Thinking Atheist podcast. Hi, who's this?
Hi, Seth. It's Amanda from Nebraska.
Amanda, we're all just venting today. We're just letting off some steam, eating keto chips, talking about the world. What do you have to say?
Oh, maybe a little too much. I have an individual that I work with. I work in a salon, and we are mandated to have our clients wear masks and us wear masks during the entire service. And we have one particular employee that will sometimes tell her clients that I cannot work around this mask. Take it off. And then she'll take hers off. And it's usually only when her and I are in the salon alone without any bosses.
Which puts you at risk.
Yes, and I have a blood clotting disorder.
And her attitude is what? Is she just ambivalent? Like, screw it? Or why? Why does she not want to do the mask?
It's the numbers. She doesn't understand that it's real since we're a smaller community. We are a hot spot, though, in our state. So we had 3 big hot spots in Nebraska, and we were one of the largest out of our per capita population for a very long time in the beginning. And now that we're back at work, it's like she just doesn't believe that it's something that can happen to her.
So if you sat her down, if she was one of those people like we've been speaking about, and you showed her the data, you showed her the facts, the statistics, and whatnot. I realize they're in flux, and there have been some controversies about how the numbers are reported. But let's say you gave her the basics. Would she receive that information? Would she care, in your opinion?
Absolutely not. I have worked with this individual for almost 15 years. She has the emotional intelligence of a 12-year-old when she's pushing 60. Every time I've tried to have a conversation with her, she speaks with her emotion so loudly that when I asked her one day to please calm down and stop talking with her emotions and just have a conversation, I had to go rinse the client because we were at work, and she looked at my coworker and said, well, if you're going to fucking piss me off, I'll speak with my emotions. So I actually have given up on her. I'm not speaking to her. She's being a blatant see you next Tuesday every day she works with me. It's like she's a ghost. I do not acknowledge that she is in the building. And it boils me so much because she is still walking through the building without a mask on through all of our clients.
And it's defiance. It's her expression of individual freedom.
Yes. I've brought it up to my bosses, and they have basically just said, oh, you know her. We can't say anything to her. It's not worth the fight. She'll retire in maybe like 4 years. So we have 4 more years of putting up with her type of attitude in the building, but everyone's afraid of her.
My wife works in healthcare. I don't think she minds me telling this story, but they have a sign on the door, right? I mean, she worked with immunocompromised people, often cancer patients. And so there's a sign on the door that says, no visitors in the lobby, and please wear a mask. And what do? People drag visitors in, ignore the signs, and even if they wear a mask, as soon as they get in there and go back to the table, they take the mask off. Now, because Natalie has to deal with patients, immunocompromised patients, all day, all week, what they have done is they have put her at greater risk for contracting it, which means every patient who walks in the door after that is now at greater risk. There is this weird island unto yourself attitude that I just don't understand. You know, someone posted that
Same.
we do things all the time we put on sunscreen when we go out in the summertime. We wear sunglasses to protect our eyes and from UV light, and we put on our seat belts when we're in a car, and we take precautions all the time. Why are people so freaked out about a mask? I don't get it.
I've never heard so many adult people complain about wearing a tiny mask for the 2 or 3 weeks that we've been able to work again.
You know, you look at Japan.
Like little spoiled babies.
They have been wearing masks in Japan for years and years, right? It's a personal and public safety thing. You see it all the time. It's part of their new normal. And I've mentioned this to some of my fellow citizens of the United States, and they're like, well, we ain't Japan. Like, they take pride in the fact that we're going to set ourselves off from another culture that does it because we're individuals and we're going to blaze our own trail and we're going to go out and breathe on each other. I feel your pain. I feel the lament in your heart. I do.
If you go back into American history, I swear I thought I read somewhere that we started the trend of wearing masks well before they did because we had some kind of outbreak. They adopted our practices because they thought it was smart. We had amnesia and we've forgotten all about our problems, and now we don't want to do it because they're doing it. But I'm pretty sure, I thought I read somewhere that we might have started that trend for the other countries because it was a smart idea. It made sense. I don't know where I read that at.
I don't know. I have to go look it up.
It's not hard to wear a mask.
I'm sorry I'm sorry you've had troubles. When the pandemic goes away, if I need a haircut, I'll just, where do you live?
I'm in Nebraska.
Okay.
I've met you before in Lincoln, and I'm the one that gave you that little skull.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, you gave me this little, it's kind of a cool little, it looks like Day of the Dead type stuff.
It's a little muskrat.
Yeah, I've got it on display on my shelf here.
Yep.
Behind me. Yeah.
Yep.
No, the gift has been remembered. Forgive me for not making that connection right off the bat. Well, one day I may look you up and you can help me get rid of the gray. We'll do that. All right. I'll have my people call your people.
I'll be here.
All right. Be safe out there. Thanks again.
Right, bye.
Take care. That's all I got today. I can't do anymore. I have nothing left to give you today. And I have an inbox that it's not going away, so I do have some responsibilities to make sure that I'm producing further content for the Thinking Atheist. Looks like I'm going to get the chance to talk to John Steingard. Remember that guy who was the lead vocalist for the Christian band Hawk Nelson a few weeks back? Came forward on Instagram, made a public announcement. He said, I got to tell everybody I no longer believe in God. He just announced it. That has to have altered the trajectory of the rest of his life, John Steingard. And I think we're going to get him on the show. Man, that'll be a fascinating story. Talk about what it was like back in the music industry and his own journey and what it was like to come out in front of his band members and the record executives and his family and his fans all around the world. I mean, that's massive. So stand by, because I think I'll be talking to him in the days or weeks ahead. I've got a show coming up with Vietnam veteran John Musgrave. Guy was almost mortally wounded in the Vietnam War. He was featured in the Ken Burns Civil War documentary, which aired Civil War. Ken Burns did the Civil War. The Ken Burns Vietnam War documentary, which aired on PBS and is now on Netflix. And he talks about war and protest, and it's a hugely relevant conversation, right? Patriotic protest. Because there's this narrative among many evangelicals, especially, that if you protest your country, you're a traitor to your country. And I hold the opposite point of view now, on the other side of the looking glass. I think protest is an absolutely essential part of a free society. So, I mean, when we talk about this guy who was a Marine who almost died with a bullet to the chest, and then he had a transformation in his life that caused him to become a Vietnam War protester, holy shit, I had to hear his story. Going to get him on the show. Going to talk to Vila Bianca. She's one of the co-hosts of Talk Heathen and Secular Sexuality. We've got a show coming up together. I've got a broadcast with an engaged couple. The guy is an atheist and she is still a Christian, some flavor of Christian. And they're going to get married. And so I thought, well, that'd be an interesting conversation to have. What's the family think about that? How are you guys going to navigate that? How do you overcome this difference in your religion, being someone who's married to a non-atheist? I'm proof that it can work. Not always easy, but it can work. So we're going to talk about that with them. So that's on the docket. I'm doing a sort of a general knowledge show, just kind of a fun off-the-cuff show, sort of the antithesis of this show, which was, I'm sorry, just a little bit on the downer. I don't mean to be a downer. I'm sorry for being negative. The next show is going to be a little more lighthearted and fun. And it's called I Have Questions, the stuff I should already know, just a fun general knowledge education type of show, which I hope you will find entertaining. So anyway, I got a lot of this stuff on the docket. I need to go get into it and prepare it for you to do my due diligence as an admin and a host. And in the meantime, just know that you are a reminder to me that I'm not alone and maybe there is hope left for humanity. Maybe we aren't circling in the drain. Maybe we should survive the apocalypse and move on. Maybe we can evolve to survive. And if you have felt the same sort of despair in your life, maybe you've been encouraged that you're not alone either. And maybe, just maybe, if we work together and keep pushing through, maybe we'll come out on the other side. Anyway, much love from my family to your family. Be safe out there. We'll hang out again soon.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter for a complete archive of podcasts and videos, products like mugs and t-shirts featuring the Thinking Atheist logo, links to atheist pages and resources, and details on upcoming Free Thought events and conventions. Log on to our website, thethinkingatheist.com.